Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our homeroom. I hope your holiday break was filled with lots of laziness and pajamas and eating a bunch of treats, and you were able to really enjoy some peaceful time with your kids over break. I know that's my favorite kind of day when the day just flows and there's no expectations, there's no productivity that's expected. Everybody just kind of hangs out, goes with the flow, and I don't know, those days just go so much easier. And I enjoy that. So every time the school year starts back up again in January, I'm always dreading switching back over to the uber productive, uber busy, uber going here and there and everywhere. And so every year, I always try to think, okay, what can I do this time to make things easier? What can I change just a little bit to keep just a little bit of that laziness and flow that we have over break? And it's like, yes, we need to get more structure. I do miss over break after a while, we need a little structure, get back to eating healthy, things like that. But some of that peace and flow that we have over break would be so nice to have more into the school year. So every year I try to think of something like, what expectation can I lessen a little bit, or what can I let go of, just so that I want to prioritize more peace and more flow. So what I thought I would do today for you all is to go over one of the biggest problems I see with families, which is the homework struggle. Since I've been a teacher, so for 24 years, that is probably one of the biggest complaints I would hear from parents, is how much they're fighting with their child over homework every night, if not every night, majority of nights. And if they're not home to make sure their child does their homework, they don't do it. And it's just a constant battle and a constant struggle. So I thought, going into this semester, one of the easiest ways that most of you can probably find some peace in your after school routine is by just ending those homework battles. That is huge for a lot of you. And honestly, there's really no reason for them. I know homework seems really important when we're in that zoomed in lens, right? When we're going through the everyday work and everyday struggle and everyday school and work and doing all these things. Homework seems so important, but most of the time it is not. And I will say that it is never more important than that relationship you have with your child. That is where they're going to get that thriving, feeling confident, feeling that they can do anything from. They're going to get that from your relationship, not from completing homework. Yes, completing homework can help teach responsibility and an ownership. But even as a teacher, I will say I was not a huge fan of homework. I feel like I would give a few questions in math every day just to have them go home and practice and come back. But homework overall, especially in the early years, especially in kindergarten through fifth grade, is really, really not. Research shows over and over again, it doesn't really help them that much in school. So we don't want homework to become such a battle that it's ruining the relationship or putting even just a little monkey wrench in the relationship with your child. It's not that important. So what I thought I would share with you today is some reasons why homework actually is the problem for you and your family. What is the struggle with your child? Why are they actually really having trouble with homework, or why are you battling about homework? And then we're going to go into the solutions for each of those reasons, because there is a valid reason why homework is an issue for your child. It is valid. So if we can just figure out what that problem is, then we provide the solution, and then homework battles end for good. So that's what I like to share with you all today. Don't forget, there is a worksheet attached. So if you click the links below, there's a link that will take you to my website, which has all the worksheets for all the podcasts. This one is episode number 9, so just click for the worksheet for number 9, and that will bring up pretty much exactly what I have on the slides. That way you can follow along or read at home, or you can also watch on YouTube where I have the slides. If you're not already watching, then that might make it easier for you too, especially if you're more of a visual learner the way I am. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get into how to stop homework battles for good. All right. Our overall goal with our children, I'm assuming yours is the same as mine was, which is most parents, is to get our children to do well in school, take responsibility and have ownership of that schooling, to the best of our children's abilities without us having to be involved, without having to fight and things like that. So if you are seeing that that is not happening, if you are seeing a child that is struggling in school, struggling to do homework, they don't seem to care about school, they don't care about grades, there is an underlying valid reason for that. Understand that, remember, your child is doing the best that they can. And if their behavior isn't great, if it isn't positive, if it isn't healthy, then that is because they are experiencing negative emotions, which come from unmet needs. Once you can figure out what those unmet needs are and you provide strategies to meet those needs, then those bad and unhealthy behaviors go away. So that's what we're going to focus on today. How can we figure out what the missing need is, why your child is actually struggling with homework, why you guys are actually battling about homework, and then provide some solutions that really will meet those needs. That way, that behavior goes away permanently. And that's really the trick, is if we can meet their needs, that misbehavior goes away for good, and you won't ever have to deal with that again. So, sometimes when we see our child not doing homework or not caring about school, we can just label them as bad or wrong or lazy. And then we feel that we just need to punish them or take privileges away or do all these things to try to control their behavior. But actually, it's the opposite. You're going to want to empathize with them and get on the same team with them and understand that they are doing the best that they can from where they are. And if you can get into that place of empathy, get into that place of understanding their perspective, then you've now created that team mindset that is so, so important. Because if you and your child are on the same team, then it's you guys against this homework problem, which, yes, it should be. Homework is not fun. Nobody likes homework. So when you and your child can empathize and get on the same team about that and go, you know what? You're right. Homework is really crappy. Let's see if we can figure out how to do this so that you're getting the work done and you're not getting, bad grades in school, but we are not fighting. So there is a way to go about that. And that first step is to just get on the same team with them. So if you can empathize, then it opens up curiosity. Okay, so I'm on the same team as my child. They're struggling with homework because, yeah, homework is crappy. Why is it so bad for them, though? Why is my child really struggling? So I'm going to share the most common 4 reasons I have seen over the last 24 years as to why children struggle with homework. And then I'll provide, on the next slide, I'll provide solutions for each of those problems. So one of the first most common reasons is the work is actually too difficult. So your child is feeling stressed. So that negative emotion that they're feeling is stress. And if they're feeling stress, they might not be wanting to do any work because the work is too difficult. It could be that they're struggling with the academics. It could be that they're struggling with study skills. Maybe that teacher, a certain teacher's style of teaching just does not match with them and they just don't get it. I have heard that so many times over the years from kids. Like there's just certain teachers that just do not teach in a way that works for some children. It could be that they have low interest in a class because, as we all know, we're all human. And when we don't have an interest in something, it makes it so hard to actually care about doing anything towards that. So it could be that a certain class, they just don't have interest in that subject area. Or it could be that they are just generally overworked. Maybe they're taking too many hard classes. Maybe they're taking too many classes with too many clubs and sports and social commitments. So it could be just overall stress is making just everything. They're just overwhelmed. They're at the brim and they just can't really do any more work. So one of the valid reasons could be they are literally just working too hard. It is too difficult. They're stressed out. Okay. A second reason that could be the problem is they're lacking a clear homework plan. So the feeling that comes with that is confusion. They're really not sure how to do it, what to do it, where to do it. So they could be lacking just some structure around homework. If there's no clear routine or no clear structures and nothing's ever been enforced about homework, then it could be kind of like everything's kind of up in the air and they're not really sure how to go about that. So it could literally be just confusion and lack of having any structure or goals or knowing what to do or where to do it. So that's number 2, lacking a homework plan. Number three, a third reason why there could be an issue is they could be feeling hopeless. They're lacking any belief in themselves. And this could happen if too much has gone wrong and they're just drowning. They may not feel that they could ever pull themselves back up again, that they could ever do really good, or maybe the expectations that have been set for them, they don't feel that they could ever reach. So then they just avoid doing it all. They're feeling helpless or hopeless. They don't feel like there's really any purpose. So it's just easier to avoid. This is a really, really common one. And I do go into this specific thing a lot more in my episode about why children are lazy or unmotivated. So if you are feeling that that is one of your children, make sure to go back and check that episode out as well. The fourth reason that I have seen why many children struggle in school to take their own responsibility is because parents actually have that ownership and responsibility for them. So they then are feeling powerless. They're not going to take responsibility for their schoolwork if someone else is doing it for them. So as parents, it kind of creates a vicious cycle, because if our kids start to not care about school, we can step in and start doing more for them. We can start, regulating everything about homework, schoolwork. We make all the rules, we're setting all the consequences, and our children don't really have a say in anything. So they feel powerless. So you're going to get two responses to that. One could be a child who fights back, and that's the one you're literally having battles with. The other response, that's a very healthy response to someone taking over something, is to give up. If they feel, especially if they feel like they're never going to do it as good as you can do it, then they might just give up and let you have control over it. So we want to make sure we're really honest with ourselves as parents. Are we doing things that our children could do on their own? They might not want to, but could they be doing that on their own if they had the chance to do so? So again, here are the four most common reasons. Is the work too difficult, so your child is feeling stressed? Are they lacking a homework plan, so they're feeling a little confused or directionless? Do they lack belief in themselves, so they're feeling hopeless? And is it because you have some more ownership than needed, so they're feeling kind of powerless in that situation? Those are the four most common that I've seen. And this is great, because if it is one of those four, awesome. It is simply a problem, one of those problems, and then it just requires a solution. So next, I'm going to get into solutions specifically for each of those four reasons. All right, once you have figured out the problem, then it just simply becomes finding a solution that works best for you and your child. And the best way to go about finding solutions is always to involve your children as much as possible. And I know it depends on their age, but just imagine how powerful it is if you were to go to your child and say, listen, I love you with all my heart, and we are fighting about homework every day, and that is not good for our relationship, and I don't want to do that anymore. I love you too much to let homework get between the two of us. And then go into, let's talk about this. What is the problem? Here's what I'm thinking the problem is. Here are some solution ideas. What do you think? What would work? What do you think you need? And really just have a conversation. The older children especially, but even with your younger children, you can come to them with this, I don't want to fight about homework anymore. We're going to change a few things around here so that we can stop fighting, and get their opinions. What do you think? Do you feel like that will work? Or let's try this for a week. You can give them limited choices when they're really young, but the more you can involve them in the problem solving, the better. Just the way we feel at work. If you've ever had an employer who really comes to you and values your opinion on how to solve a work issue, it just makes us more motivated to do whatever that is that the new routine involves. We're more motivated to do it. We feel included, we feel respected, we feel part of the team. And that just makes us feel better enough to sometimes switch some bad habits, So the more you can involve your children in this, the better. But I'm going to give you a few simple solution ideas for all of those four problems, just to give you some talking points with you and your child and your partner, so you can really start delving into how to solve these for good. So the first thing to remember is that all of these behaviors, remember, are coming from negative feelings, which are coming from unmet needs. So if we focus on figuring out those negative feelings, those will trace us back to what those unmet needs are. If we can provide a strategy that meets those needs, then these homework battles will end for good. So number one, the work is too difficult. If this is the problem that you identified, your child is struggling in school literally for a legitimate work reason. They're struggling with keeping up with all their work. There's a class that's an issue. Their teacher is not communicating well to them for whatever reason. They're taking too many hard classes, whatever it is. Here are some things that you can do to that. And keeping in mind that if they're feeling stressed, so anytime we feel stress comes up, it's usually an overwhelmment situation. That could mean I need to reach out to get support from other people to help me manage all of these things that are too much. Or it could mean I need some boundaries. I need to pull back and actually stop doing as much as it is that I am doing. So if it's a situation where your child just could use some support, talk to the teacher. Many times, especially when our children are young, there could be a learning disability or something else that is really hindering them and making work harder. So if the teacher is saying most kids aren't struggling with this, just your child is, then it might be a situation that there's some kind of learning disability to look into. And so it's so important to talk to the teacher, especially with our younger children. You could sign them up for tutoring or coaching. So it could be a situation where they just need a little extra support. It's this specific class, they just aren't very good at math and they might need a math tutor. Maybe they're struggling with study skills. Maybe someone on the side could just help them organize. Sometimes it's not great when it's us. As parents, I was a teacher and I would try to help my son in school. I mean, I literally taught fourth and fifth grade, and he would be in fourth and fifth grade. I'd be trying to help him with his homework, and he wanted nothing to do with my advice. So sometimes we aren't the best people to tutor and to coach, and it's great to kind of go out of that relationship to give them some of those tips. But they might need just some help with study skills, organization, time management. They might need some help with actual academics. So getting some support outside is really helpful. Or it could mean that they need some more boundaries down. Maybe they need to drop a class or switch classes. Maybe if it's just one class that's too hard, maybe you'd really like to see them finish that class, but then in order for them to finish that class, that means you are going to be fighting with them tooth and nail. It may not be worth it to finish that class. It might be all right to switch classes into something that they would enjoy more and would give them a little bit more relief towards all of the other classes and make everything a little bit more easier to manage. Just cutting back in general. Maybe they need to cut back on some of the clubs that they're in or take less AP classes, things like that. So there could be other ways for them to cut back, and that is okay. It is okay for your child to be overworked. Maybe you're thinking that wouldn't be overworked for me. When I was in school, I took 5 AP classes and had 3 after school sports and, managed it all. And that's fine, but some kids just are not those kids. So if you're seeing your child struggle, it might be a way to just either get them some support or let them have some more boundaries and let go of some of those things. They may have too much on their plate. All right, for the second reason, if it's just that they're lacking a homework plan, it could be because there aren't good established or enforced boundaries at home. So the best thing is to find a system of homework that works for them. Where do they like to do their homework? When do they like to do their homework? Right when they get home, after a break, later after dinner, before bed? When is the best time for them to do homework? Finding a location in the house that is not distracting. Let them make those choices, even if they're the wrong ones at first. Let them make those choices and see if they can do some trial by error to find an area where they like to do homework, a time that really works best for them. And then how will they remember to do it? So if they're like, oh yeah, after a break is really good, are they going to set reminders on their phone? How will they remember? So work with them on those kind of boundaries and then come up with consequences together. What's going to happen if they don't do their homework? What are the consequences? Agree, get on the same team as them as to what those consequences are. Okay, so you're saying you're going to do homework after dinner. What happens if you don't? How can I support you in establishing a homework habit? The next day, you have to do it right when you get home. Or the next day, we have to take technology away because that's what was distracting and you didn't get homework done. So we're going to have to try it for a couple days without technology. Maybe that will help keep you focused. Maybe it's trying a different location. So what can we set up as consequences to help you with establishing a homework habit? If you're enforcing consequences, just make sure that those consequences are related to not doing homework. They're respectful. They're revealed in advance, which is what you're doing now. You're discussing what those consequences are now, and you are enforcing them every time. So make sure you're really consistent in enforcing them and it really, honestly, it doesn't take very long to enforce consequences before they start to establish a routine and a structure. That is the goal. The goal is not punishing. The goal is just to help guide them into healthy habits. So come up with those things together, and that really helps make them stick with it a little bit more. If it's because they're lacking belief in themselves, then that means they are lacking the need of encouragement. They're feeling discouraged. So where you can help is to remind them that mistakes are okay. Remind them that you believe in them, that you have faith in them. Maybe give them baby steps to success, which may mean you have to lessen expectations. So maybe having all A's isn't going to work. Maybe having C's this semester might be a better way so that they can see that they can reach goals. You can always increase those goals later on. But give them little baby steps. Maybe missing assignments is their problem. Okay, well then how can I help you not have 20 missing assignments, but let's aim for just 5 missing assignments instead. So giving them some baby steps to get to that point where they can feel success is really, really important. And then you being that cheerleader on the side, telling them that you believe in them. And that can really, really help our discouraged children. And number 4, if it is because you have discovered, yeah, you know what, I probably am taking too much ownership of my child's schooling. I'm probably stepping in a little bit more than I should. Figure out a way to step back and allow them to take over their schoolwork, even if it is imperfectly. It is okay. The school has consequences set up. I remember my son coming to me in first grade and he was like, I don't want to do my homework. And I was like, okay, don't do it. You have to do what feels right for you. What happens if you don't? What's going to happen tomorrow if you go in and you don't have homework? Oh, my teacher will probably yell at me and I'm going to lose some team points. And I was like, and are you okay with that? Are you okay with that consequence? And he very quickly was like, I don't really want to be called out, for not doing homework. So then he went and did homework. But if you're just like, let those consequences happen, let the natural consequences and come up with them together. If he continues to not turn homework in, what's eventually going to happen? His grades will go down. So decide together. What grades do we want? What grades are really best for you? And then what happens when you don't get those grades? What can we do? Is it technology that's too much of an issue? Is it social time? So again, you're constantly just talking about what are the limits? What are the goals that you have with school? How can I help support those, help you support you with those goals and encourage you through using kind consequences that are respectful and followed through to just help you kind of figure out what works for you. But try to let go of looking at grades every day. Try to let go of monitoring every single missing assignment they have and let them figure it out on their own. They will not figure it out if you are figuring it out with them or for them, right? So let them you can step back. And again, you always want to be, regarding schooling, you always want to be empathetic. You always want to show interest. You want to show enthusiasm, promote independence, and support through mistakes while also being non-judgmental. Those are all really important. You want to be involved and supportive and rooting them on, but you do not want to be doing anything for them that they can do themselves. You just have to be okay with those consequences that are going to come up, which might be bad grades, and that's okay. The earlier you can do this, the better. In the elementary school times, if you can back off completely, that's the best time to do it because those grades really don't matter in K-5. They're an indicator whether your child is doing well or has a learning disability or is struggling, but they don't really count too much. Talk to the teacher and say, I'm not going to step in with homework anymore. I'm going to let him deal with those consequences at school. So you might see some dip in grades while he figures out how to do homework on his own, but I just don't want to do it for him or with him anymore. He can figure this out on his own, and I want him to have that independence. So those are the 4 most common solutions. Again, Talk it over with your child. Come up with these things together, because the more you can be on the same team as a family and working through these together, the faster those solutions will work, and the more peace you'll have in your relationship. And really, that's the goal, right? You want to take that juicy, good, loving relationship that you want with your child. You want that there. You don't want homework to get in the way. You want to take that relationship and make that the priority, not homework, right? So that's the most important thing to keep in mind when it comes to ending those homework battles. All right, homework this week is just a couple questions to get you thinking about the best way to handle ending homework battles between you and your child, because they're just not worth it. And I want to see you have a nice transition from that good flowing holiday break into a school year that's not quite as stressful. And the best way to do that, honestly, is to start letting go of homework a little bit. So, number one, when you find yourself having a battle with your child over homework, try to zoom back and see the big picture. It's not worth breaking the relationship over homework. So, what can you do to lessen the stress or the burden for both of you? Figure out your real priorities regarding homework from that perspective, from that zoomed back perspective. Not the everyday homework seems really important today because it's something on the list that we must do. And zoom really back 20 years down the road. You're looking back on this time in your life. How important is homework? And if it is, why? What's the actual reason homework is important? Because if you can figure out what actually is important, there might be a lot of expectations that you're like, you know what, actually, I don't want to fight with them over that. It doesn't matter if they do homework right when they get home, or if they do it before bed, or if they do it on the couch instead of doing it at their desk. Maybe you're fighting about things that don't really matter. So just zoom back a little bit, kind of reprioritize. What is my priority with homework? And if it is to just teach them better habits, then it just becomes problem solving. And like I said, working with your child to come up with those solutions that really work best for both of you. All right, number two, if it is a situation where your child needs more boundaries, they need you to establish some boundaries for them, or you need to work together to establish boundaries, or you need to enforce those boundaries, then what are you going to remember to enforce those consequences? Because sometimes we're like, oh, we set up all these consequences. If you don't do your homework, after school, like you're saying you're going to, because you get stuck on technology, then the next day we decided there's going to be no technology. When the next day comes and they didn't do their homework, you've got to take away their technology if that's what you decided to do, if that's the reason that they are not doing their homework. How are you going to remember? You may need to set reminders on your own to remember to enforce those consequences. I know I've had to do that a million times. And remember, it doesn't take very long. I think when it comes to enforcing consequences, it only takes a few times before your child knows you mean it. And then they're not going to keep testing that. But if you're sometimes enforce the consequence and sometimes don't, they're going to keep testing it. So it only really takes 2 or 3 times of you being consistent and enforcing those consequences before they take you seriously. They stop testing the consequences, and then they start changing their behavior. That is how that works. So set reminders for yourself if you need to remember you need to remember to enforce consequences. And then number 3 is actually just a shameless plug for my services. So I am an academic coach. I work with children specifically on study skills, time management, organization, motivation, procrastination, all of those things. So if your child is actually struggling with those study skills, I can help. I do offer virtual sessions too, not just in person here in Orlando, Florida, but I also have virtual sessions. So please make sure to click on my website link where I have a 30-minute phone consultation that you can sign up for. It is absolutely free. And then we can really talk about whether what I have to offer will help your child or not, because sometimes it is just getting that outside person to help them organize a planner, come up with, a homework routine. And those are all the things I do. And that takes you out of the equation. So again, you and your child can get back to getting along, and I can be the one that's holding them accountable for all that homework stuff. So just keep that in mind. Make sure to check my website out below if that is something that you think your child might need. All right, that is it for this week's episode. I hope that helps you have a little bit better of a transition into the school year, coming from the nice holiday, soft, flexible, flowy break into a little bit more of a peaceful second semester. Hopefully you can let go of some of those homework battles because it really will make your afternoons just so much more smooth with your children and bring your relationship a lot closer. And that's what I hope for you because it just makes life so much better when we're getting along with our kids, right? All right, so thank you so much for listening. Please reach out with any questions you have, whether or comments, if something's working or not working. I'd love to hear from you. And that is my name, kristentame@gmail.com. So please reach out. Don't forget to click the links below if you want more information. And I will see you again in a couple weeks.